Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Anthony, and today I'm going to explain to you the TypeScript in a very nutshell. So very basics and very primitive details that you will need in the most projects that have the TypeScript. And without further ado, so obviously for using TypeScript, you need to have the project set up for the TypeScript. And if you're dealing with Vue.js, which we love, when you're creating the new project, you have an options to already add a TypeScript support. So when you're running that npm create Vue latest, you will need to pick the TypeScript yes, and you will have created a couple of config files. You will have the TypeScript created in your package JSON file, and when it comes to writing an actual code. So what do we have here? We have a very primitive application with a button with a summary that will do something. So basically it's a function that takes two payload arguments, and it will assign the summary of these two payload to a variable, which we have here. By default it's 0, we click, it's 30. Imagine the situation that it's not only you who works on a project, and there are multiple other software engineers, and they also had a task to do something with your function in your file, or use it somewhere else. And for example, he creates a new function and here messes up a little bit with the payload, making it not numbers, but strings. What we're gonna do? We're gonna have not that result that we expect. Of course, JavaScript can handle it. Normally, JavaScript can summarize strings, but this is not what we expect, right? So in order to add type to your Vue component, the only thing you need to do is to add lang ts for your script section. Now you immediately can see something being highlighted or underlined. For example, that parameter a implicitly has any type, meaning that it might be anything. And this is the case, right? And it's not going to be handled properly. So now let's fix a little bit our function to prevent using it this way. This is very easy. So you add a column and say that a is going to be a number and the b is going to be a number as well. And immediately on the place where you call a function and pass in arguments, you will have it underlined saying argument of type string is not assignable to parameter of type number. And the good engineer will of course change it to a proper numbers here, and everything is going to be just perfectly fine. But of course, this kind of type declaration is not the only thing that TypeScript can do. This is a very primitive. Of course, if you have something of a primitive type, such as number, string, or boolean, you can do it like this. But let's imagine we have a fetch, an API call. So let's create a function fetch data, which will do the fetch call and will return the JSON eventually. Nothing bad with it, nothing is highlighted. The only thing is that it's not used, but this is totally fine. But what if you need to know what is that final result that we're gonna get after calling that API? Yeah, we might have a Swagger on the application in a project, and we can go and see what is the result of calling an API. You can actually go and call that API and go to network tab and see what is happening there. But TypeScript gives you an ability to understand it in advance. TypeScript has so-called interfaces. And let's say we have an interface response. To create an interface, you just write interface, the name of the interface, and a brackets. And let's say we have a code which gonna be number, and we're gonna have, I don't know, the message, which is gonna be string. Now, in that case, we can assign types not only to payload or variables, we can make a function type. For that, we do pretty much the same. So first of all, since we're using fetch, which is a promise, we say that this is gonna be a promise, and the return of that promise will be our response. To add the type of a type of function, you need to use these brackets. And that's it. And basically, when the other guy or girl who's gonna work with who's gonna need to deal with that fetch data function, just simply can see, okay, this is type of response. What is the response? It has a code and message. Now I perfectly understand what is going to be result of calling that API. Very, very simple. And interfaces, of course, it's not just going to be code and message in real life. Of course, you will most likely have a data, which is going to be an object, right? And yes, you can say that this is going to be an object, but you most likely need to see the detailed type of that data object. And you can create another interface saying, let it be object, and let it have, I don't know, also a code, for example, a string, another key type of number, and whatsoever. And we can have one interface referring another interface. And last but not least, we can have types created on the go. So imagine you don't want to have, or you don't have interface of object, or you don't want to create it. You can simply create it on the go. For that case, we can use record, and we have two values in these kind of brackets. First of all, if we're talking about object, is going to be object has what? Key and the value, right? So first one is key, and in the object it's always a string. If you're dealing with map, for example, it can be anything, but in object the key is always a string. And the second one can be a number, for example, or it can be also a string, or it can be even unknown, because you might not know the value of your type of the value of your object. And in TypeScript, if you want to have or, you use not double kind of this sticks, but just one, not like this in JavaScript, but just one. And now, yes, last but not least, imagine you have some array thingy here, and how we create an arrays. Imagine you have array of strings. You need to say it's going to be string array. The same will go for an array of numbers. And even if you have an object, you can have an array of objects like this. Easy as that. And this is the very, very quick introduction of the TypeScript in a nutshell, the very basics. Of course, TypeScript has a massive documentation that you can read about the interfaces, about the references, have tutorials and stuff like that. So please give it a time, read. But this is really the main features that I, for example, use on my daily basis. Creating interfaces, assigning those interfaces to functions, to variables, and just making sure I'm not violate any of the types. This is it. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope it will be useful for you guys. And if you liked it, please give a like, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next videos. Cheers. Bye-bye.